Conversation, Democratic congressman from California and candidate for Senate. Adam Schiff is here. If he's calling DOJ dirty, rotten bastards, I wondered for a second what he calls you, but I think we know from his Truth Social post. There's nothing funny about the Republican acquiescence to this insidious and dangerous lie that the Department of Justice, that any prosecutor that does something that threatens your political dear leader is rigged. How do we protect those institutions?
It is astonishing, their continued obedience to this con man, this convict. Our hearing in the Judiciary Committee today was delayed because they all had to pay obeisance to this guy. And I was with them on January 6th. I was on the House floor as these rioters were breaking into the building, beating police officers, breaking glass to get into the House chamber. I walked out of that chamber with a Republican who had ripped a wooden post out of the ground. It still had the hand sanitizer dispenser on the top, and he was going to use it as a club to defend himself. And now they are rallying to his side. It really takes your breath away. And they're not only willing to rally to his side, but as you point out, they're willing to pull down the whole House of Justice along with them. They're willing to attack not just the Manhattan District Attorney, but any prosecution anywhere of their beloved leader. It really is not only extraordinarily dangerous to the country because they're breeding such disrespect for the law, for our democracy, but it is, such a proof of the fact that the only concept they really hold dear, the only quality, the only attribute they really cherish is power, and they're prepared to do anything to get it. And I think it has to come as quite a revelation to Donald Trump that they are so weak, because the message they're sending to him is whatever he does, no matter how destructive, how violent it may be, they will still have his back because they are too scared to do otherwise.
Congressman, we sort of shorthand the cognitive distance from reality. I mean, J.D. Vance, we just played, describing himself as a never-Trumper. Lindsey Graham, we just played, saying, I'm out. I carried his golf bag for long enough. January 6th, I'm out. Mitch McConnell essentially referring him criminally, which is the work of the committee. And they fall into line. We describe it as Earth 1 and Earth 2, but I wonder if that's inadequate. I wonder if we should more aggressively pursue the facts, even with people whose loyalty to Trump seems sort of locked in for them politically. I mean, it feels like we all need to re-examine everything that we do and the way we talk about it. I mean, the fact of the Department of Justice is that Merrick Garland prosecuted the sitting president's son. He faces the possibility of 25 years in prison. Democratic Senator Bob Menendez is also on trial. Other Democrats have been indicted and will stand trial. It's ludicrous. And you could argue that Merrick Garland certainly does oversee a department with two standards of justice for the deliberate and glacial pace with which criminal scrutiny fell Donald Trump. I mean, what is your sense as a candidate for the Senate about the pace and the aggressive nature of keeping the facts in front of the American people?
Well, I think we have to continue to fight this fire hose of misinformation and disinformation. But the thing that is so striking to me also is these folks you just mentioned, they all know the facts. They understand the prosecution of the president's son. They understand the separation of a Manhattan District Attorney's office from a federal prosecution office, from the Department of Justice, from the president. They understand all that. They are just so willing to mislead, to gaslight the public in the service of their continued opportunity to be in the House or be in the Senate or maybe get another cabinet post or a cabinet post in a future Trump administration. They're willing to essentially promote this completely fact-free counter-narrative, and we continually have to do battle with it because there remain enough Americans out there who are undecided, not sure what to make of these competing narratives that may decide this election. But what is so revealing is, in a way, less about Donald Trump, much more revealing about the people that work in this building and what they're really made of and what they really care about. And that may be the most shocking fact of all. that you could go from saying, I'm done with him, there are better ways to deal with him, as in prosecution, to this terrible show that we saw today, where they're all reinventing themselves, all reimagining themselves, all essentially swearing their fealty to him once again. Says a lot about them, maybe more about them than it does about Donald Trump.
Congressman, this is Vaughn Hilliard here in New York with Nicole. A question for you, because today it was indicated that Alvin Bragg, as well as Matthew Colangelo from the DA's office, they intend to cooperate with the invitation to come before the committee on July 12th to testify. This would be the day after the sentencing of Donald Trump here in New York. What should folks, this will be public to our understanding, what should folks anticipate coming out of that hearing with those two?
Well, and here's another sharp contrast for you. The same chairman of the Judiciary Committee demanding that they appear failed to appear for his own subpoena. But nevertheless, in terms of what we can expect, I think we can probably expect that they're going to outline, again, how the Manhattan District Attorney's Office operates, how they were not dictated in what charges to bring by the Justice Department, how it was their own independent decision, what role the jury played, how the judge was selected, and that it was at random. I think they will do their best to fight that fire hose of disinformation. They're not going to get into sort of internal deliberations within the Manhattan DA's office. They shouldn't. Those are internal prosecutorial discussions. But I can imagine the Republicans trying to make hay of what they know is standard for a prosecution office in terms of what they discuss and what they don't discuss. But I would imagine they will stick to the top line facts, and no answer that they give will be sufficient for the Matt Gaetzes, Jim Jordans of the world, because it's not designed to be. It's designed to be a hearing in which the accusation is all that matters, and the testimony itself is beside the point.
Congressman, quick question. Some of the law enforcement officials who protected the Capitol, the Democratic and Republican members who work inside of it, have become well known to our viewers, people like Harry Dunn and Officer Fanone and Officer Ganell and others. I imagine some that we don't know as well were there today when Donald Trump was there. We likened it to an arsonist going and admiring something he sought to burn down. Do you have any sense of how law enforcement felt about Trump being in the building after inciting the insurrection on January 6th?
Well, I can only imagine it is additional trauma, given what they went through to protect this institution, and not just the fact that he came back to the scene of the crime, but that these senators and House members who fled, whom these police officers so bravely defended, that they are rushing back to the person who put them all in danger that day. That has to be, I think, the most disheartening. And these are law enforcement officers that went through one horror on January 6th and been through a different kind of horror ever since, in how their service that day has been denigrated, how people have attempted to create a complete false narrative about that day. And I have to imagine it's an even bigger shock for these officers to see the true character of so many of the people they protected that day, when they probably had a very different impression of them before January 6th.
Congressman Adam Schiff, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.